One of the most helpful things that I've taught my middle school clients is the concept of boundaries. Today, I want to share a little bit about how I explain boundaries to my middle schoolers and how you might find it to be helpful as well. At their core, boundaries are limits that we set to protect our mind, our emotions, and our relationships. And the goal of boundaries is simple: to help us maintain our energy, safety, and peace so that we can actually show up as the person we want to be. A lot of people think that boundaries are about telling other people what to do, but they're not. Boundaries are about how we choose to respond, especially when things feel uncomfortable, overwhelming, or emotionally charged. When we don't have boundaries, we tend to feel drained, resentful, guilty for saying no, overwhelmed, or stuck repeating the same relational patterns. And over time, that makes it harder and harder to love ourselves and to love other people. One of the first things I teach students is that there are multiple types of boundaries. There are emotional boundaries, which have to do with how much we share or who we share with, or how we protect our feelings, and whether we take on emotions that aren't ours to carry. For middle schoolers, this might look like a student who has a friend who comes to them every single day to vent, cry, or talk about drama, but never checks in on them. An emotional boundary for them might sound like, I care about you, but I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now and need a break from the heavy conversations. That's not rejection, it's just self-awareness. For an adult, it might be a family member who repeatedly vents, criticizes, or rehashes the same conflict without taking any responsibility. An emotional boundary there might look like, I'm noticing that these conversations leave me feeling really drained, so I'm going to need to limit how long I feel comfortable talking about this topic before changing the subject. Again, it's not controlling them, it's just choosing how we want to participate. And then there are physical boundaries, which include personal space, touch, belongings, and what feels physically comfortable or uncomfortable to us. Regardless of whether you're in middle school or not, this looks like being able to communicate when we feel uncomfortable, when someone touches our belongings or our body, or when they invade our personal space. A physical boundary might sound like, I don't feel comfortable with that, or I need more space. It might be connected to hugs that we don't want, or people borrowing things without asking, coworkers touching our desk or our belongings. Another area where it is important to be aware of and communicate our boundaries is with our time and energy. These boundaries are about where we spend our time, what we commit to, and whether we leave room for rest. In the classroom, this might look like a student who consistently gives up independent work time to help others, but doesn't leave enough time for themselves to get their own work done. A time boundary for them might be, I want to help, but I need to finish this right now. For an adult, it might look like saying yes to too many invitations, favors, or work commitments, and then feeling overwhelmed and resentful as a result. For them, a boundary might sound like, I don't have capacity for that right now, or I need to think about this before committing. And finally, there are digital boundaries, something that I'm finding that many of us are still figuring out how to navigate. Digital boundaries include response time, availability, privacy, and how we engage online in general. Again, many adults often feel the same way as middle schoolers do here. We might feel pressure to respond immediately to a text, or to stay in group chats that cause drama, or to share private information. A digital boundary might look like, I'm going to mute this chat for now, or I don't respond to messages after dinner. Once I've explained the different types of boundaries, I also go over the different extremes of boundary setting. Most people struggle because their boundaries fall into one of two extremes. For those whose boundaries are too weak, they often show up as resentment, feeling guilty when saying no, people-pleasing, over-fixing others, or accepting repeated harm or disrespect. On the other hand, when a person's boundaries are too strong, It can look like emotional shutdown, isolation, extreme independence, cutting people off quickly, or refusing all repair. Both are often really understandable given people's histories, but neither is ideal long term. Healthy boundaries tend to look like clear communication, kind firmness, flexibility when appropriate, knowing when to step in and knowing when to step back. Healthy boundaries don't burn bridges, they often make relationships safer and more sustainable. One of the main tools I use with students is Mel Robbins' Let Them, Let Me framework. When something happens with someone else, we get to ask 2 questions. The first is, what am I going to let them do? This is where we get to practice radical acceptance, letting people show us who they are without chasing, fixing, or trying to control them. The second is deciding, what does let me need to look like? That's our boundary. How we choose to respond, how we protect our energy, how we act in line with our values. I find that these 2 questions are really clarifying and can help us parse out what's for us to control and what can we leave for other people to figure out themselves. Boundaries are not rules for others. We don't need someone else to agree with our boundary because it really has nothing to do with them. They're commitments that we make to ourselves. And it's up to us to follow through with them consistently. There is no right way to do boundaries. We always have choices in how we respond to any given situation, and what's healthiest for us will depend on the relationship, the season of life we're in, and what we need right now to maintain energy, safety, and peace. Boundaries aren't about loving people less, they're about loving more wisely, loving others in a way that doesn't do damage to ourselves. And when we do that, we show up more fully, more patiently, and more honestly in our relationships. If this was helpful, make sure to subscribe for more conversations like this, and feel free to share this with someone who might need it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.